Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome co-founder and CEO of Vayner Speakers, Zach Nadler. So welcome, Zach.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So Zach, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your career started for those who don't know?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. My career, it's been a long journey. I guess it really started in college where I first got connected to working with talent in the first place. So when I was in college, I actually worked for a charity golf tour. So we raised a couple $1 million a year for different charities around the world, doing a number of different events. And it all got started when I realized, there's something that attracts people to talent.
Yes.
Whether that's celebrities, actors, musicians, athletes, people have an affinity for things that remind them of another time, and things are aware of people they feel like they know, or they saw them on TV or watching a baseball game, whatever it may be. And so when I was off in college and seeing this, it got me started on a journey of trying to figure out how can I work with talent in a broader way, closer, and with people I really adored, and people whose careers I was proud of. And it all started back then and has since taken me on quite a journey.
That's amazing. So you must have had a fascinating time with premium management groups working with some of the legends in sport. So how did you manage to keep the balance between maintaining public profiles of top athletes and allowing them to remain focused on their discipline?
Well, it was kind of our job, right?
Yes.
Olympic agents, it's a very fascinating world because you're not negotiating with a team or a league. It's really athletes and their own personal coaches, right? At least in the US, we have Olympic athletes. Like, we represented a number of swimmers. They were swimming on a variety of different teams around the US. So they would all come in from different places with different stories. Some had families, some were single individual young people. And our responsibility was basically to take everything else off their plate, let them focus on their training. So we managed to find endorsement opportunities, speaking engagements, clinic opportunities, things that allowed them to make money off I shouldn't say off the field, out of the pool, out of the gym, to be able to focus on their own craft and extend the life of their career. And it's not easy. And obviously, these athletes have so much on their mind, and they really just want to be able to focus because, well, it's a long time coming, 4 years between Olympics. There's so much that goes into it, and things happen, injuries and different opportunities. So it's a matter of maintaining that balance and being able to be an advocate and guide point for the athletes. So being able to suggest them, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should, call it a day or take a break before the Olympic Games a little earlier than usual. Maybe we should focus on things that are closer to home. And there's a variety of different things like that. But it is a very difficult job and responsibility, but something I took a lot of pride in.
Yeah, absolutely. So later you moved into speaking management with CAA. So what motivated this change in direction, and what makes sports people so sought after as speakers?
Yeah, it's a great question. To answer the first part of your question, I've been working with athletes and from 2007 to 2009 around the Beijing Olympics. And like I mentioned, a lot of what I did was speaking engagements for these clients. And so when I had a customer who, I would book a client for, the next time they have their event, they would call and say, hey, can you help us with X, Y, or Z, another athlete? And if it wasn't someone I represented, I would go and source that person. And so that was kind of how I first got connected to CAA. And then as they looked to grow the speaking division, they were looking for someone in New York with a background in sports. And we had done some business together. So after a little while, it made sense to make the move and change gears, because it wasn't just working with athletes, but at CAA, I worked with entrepreneurs, actors, musicians, producers, writers, directors, you name it, politicians. And it was a tough decision to make, but it was a great opportunity, really see more of the entertainment industry, be able to work with a wider array of talent, be able to do more different, interesting deals. And it was fun because I still was working with athletes and with coaches and folks, in management around sports. And I think that it's interesting. Not everyone is a sports fan, but those who are huge sports fans, right? I also got to do a lot of things with other industries. So, I did a lot of work in Comic-Cons, right? Which is a fascinating world that's evolved over the last 10 years quite differently than it was for the 30 years prior. And I look at it and think that it's very similar, right? People have fandom. They have an excitement for a particular area, right? Whether it's a kind of movie, whether it's food or music or sports. Many people have multiple passions, but those that are kind of at the top of the field people will always kind of look to and try to learn their secret sauce, right? How did you get to
Yes.
where you are? What do you do differently? What separates you from the competition? And that's something that's always attracted me. And so, continuing to work with athletes and with people across industry has always been something that I've been passionate about.
So you spent over 9 years serving and leading the speakers department at CAA, working with the world's most recognizable talent in entertainment, sports, business, and politics. So can you share with us this amazing opportunity, and what was the experience like working with some of the biggest names at such a high level agency? Because obviously
Yeah.
you're obviously dealing with multiple personalities as well. So.
Sure. And it's
and
funny.
Ego, no doubt.
Yeah, ego becomes a big part of that. Because I was working so early with celebrities, so early in my career, I kind of lost the ability to get starstruck. So it was very rare for someone to walk in front of me and be introduced to me and be someone I was taken aback by. Now, that certainly happened on occasion with a handful of folks, especially people I grew up loving. But it was something where it becomes a job like any other, right? You just want to excel and, follow your ambition. It was quite fun to do. And, obviously I don't take any of it for granted. I always say, celebrities are just like normal people. They just have better stories at cocktail parties.
Yes.
But and working with them, I think provided kind of a glimpse into that and seeing how different people work. And, I worked with thousands of different people over a 10-year span at CAA. And everyone was a little bit different, right? They all had their peccadillos and they all had their particular ways they liked things. And so, it was a long time at that position. And, it was a great experience for me to really see how things worked at a large agency. And at the same time, the speaking industry, as you know, evolved during that time. So while I was there, being able to see it from the inside with a variety of the people I worked with and be able to impact at a small level was pretty exciting. And it was a lot of fun to do. And the various different people I worked with all just made it much more fun. And I think, sometimes it wasn't the biggest names or the people that I remember, but it's the overall kind of assortment of individuals and the different people, how every day was a little bit of a different job and responsibility because that day brought new opportunity for a different person. And the variety of different deals and types of opportunities I was working on was just so much fun. And so being able to obviously work with some of these people and be on the inside to see how it was working was a lot of fun. And that includes, seeing how parts of Hollywood worked, how parts of the sports industry worked, how things on Broadway intersected with all of this. And, seeing how, Fortune 500 companies were led by these individuals and seeing how politics was served by speaking. It was all really fascinating. And it's a part of the industry that is really interesting, but also something you don't really see, right? No one really thinks about the speaking industry, despite it being a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so it's something where it's huge, right? It's billions of dollars and people don't think of it that way. But it's something where I enjoyed the opportunity and think that there's just so much that there is to learn. And I was happy to really be able to learn as much as I did.
Amazing. So within that, what would you say some of your biggest career lessons and learnings have been?
I learned so much throughout my career.
You probably had multiple, but like what stands out for you the most?
Yeah, I would say, things shifted for me in my career at a younger age, right? A few years in at CAA, I realized that, there's something to the idea of being transparent, right? Being honest, truthful on all sides of a deal. And while an agent's job is a majority of that is sales, some people will do almost anything to get a deal done. And ultimately that doesn't serve you or your clients, right? The opportunities there are so that, you need to listen. You need to listen and understand what is going to make a difference for people. And it's very easy to give the easy answer, but ultimately I found that doing the work up front, being honest with your customers, being honest with your clients about situations only served you in the long run. And, whether that's delivering bad news promptly, whether that's being upfront and honest about expectations, those kind of things make a big deal to anyone, right? Inside or outside of the industry, but more so when there's a lot of dollars on the line. And so it really dawned on me, and it's been a big part of what I do and what we're trying to build at Vayner Speakers, which is just being honest, transparent, and thinking of everyone involved in an opportunity. Because obviously, they're a person too, and these things affect more than just you and them. So
it's their families as well and their livelihood. So.
Absolutely. Well, and oftentimes we'd be working with people who needed the revenue because that was how they were supporting themselves. And so it's also, you're talking tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for a corporation, that's also significant. So we didn't take that lightly. And I always thought that, there's a certain respect that you have to show to all sides of the party. And honesty is not something that is difficult, right? You just be truthful. And
Yeah,
so I've
exactly.
always been, I've always aimed for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in saying that, working and serving with obviously some of the biggest names and clients is not only a massive responsibility, but it also comes with its challenges. This requires strong leadership quality and obviously a strong backbone when managing egos and expectations from a client's perspective. So, what would you say is different in your leadership style in such a massively responsible role within big agencies like CAA?
Yeah, well, I think, regardless of where you're at in your career or what you're doing, I think, you have to be able to stand on your morals and your ethics. And I think that goes back to what I was saying about honesty and transparency. And I think from a leadership standpoint, you can't expect someone else to do what you're not willing to do.
Yeah.
And if you show that you're willing to put the time, energy, effort, hard work, but also do things the right way, that rubs off on people. And I think, doing for others things that, are unselfish and considerate goes a long way. And I think that that's how I try to act. I don't think I put myself ahead or above anyone else, but more try to find how can I help other people, right? Things like follow through, right? If somebody helps you out with something, I do my best to make sure I get back to them. If they make an introduction, hey, thanks for the introduction. This is what happened, right? Or, whatever it may be in terms of a deal process, I always want to make sure that you deliver on what you're doing, what you say and what you promise, that means a lot. So it's something where from a leadership standpoint, whenever I've had people underneath me or people that I work with, I want them to know that they can rely on me and that when I say I'm going to do something, it gets done. And I think that just shows a stick-to-itiveness that is so paramount to what we do in this world.
Absolutely. So you are now obviously the co-founder and CEO of Vayner Speakers, which was founded back in 2018 with Gary Vaynerchuk, who was a former client of CAA. So can you share with us how this opportunity came about and why you changed direction out of big corporates? So what was the
obviously Gary and I have known each other for 12 years this month. And
amazing.
It's pretty wild when you think about it. And obviously he wasn't the same individual and personality he is today from a celebrity standpoint, but he's the same person he was. And the more I got to know him, the more I enjoyed his company, the more I enjoyed what he was saying, and really believed that he saw things differently. He was willing to take risks. He looked at opportunity and always looked at industries too for disruption. And so we, after a lot of back and forth, kind of looked at each other and said, this is an industry that's ripe for disruption. It's been the same way for about 50 years, the same players. It's been around for a long time. Why not take a stab at it? And while I love everyone at CAA and still have great respect and talk to these folks all the time, we still do business together. The opportunity was too good to pass up to say, you know what, we can go off on our own, build something special, do something different, and try and be the best there is. And, obviously we launched in 2018. We've been in business for a little less than 3 years, and about more than half of it has been during the pandemic, which no one could have predicted. But we don't look at that and say, woe is me. It's really more of an opportunity, right? We were tested pretty early on. And I think that we show with flying colors that we're here to stay. And Gary is a great partner in these kind of opportunities because he provides you with advice, with respect, with ideas, and he's there when you need him, right? And he's also obviously my biggest client, so it makes for a really interesting dynamic. But because he's so truthful and frank with his opinions, it leads to a great working relationship. So that was kind of what led to the entire decision. But obviously, it's hard to leave a place like CAA, especially given all the talent they work with. But I wouldn't have done it if I didn't believe in our goals together. And after 2.5, almost 3 years, I couldn't be prouder of what we built together.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So how is your approach different having your own agency, and what do you believe you do better?
Yeah, well, it's funny, when you're at a large agency versus a small agency, there's obviously less people, right?
Yes,
and it's easy to say that, but what it means is there's less people to do the work. The same stuff has to happen if you're a big agency or a small agency.
Yes.
And, we launched with just a couple of people. We're still a pretty small agency. And it means that we have more responsibility on our shoulders, and we have to do that same work for our clients that they would expect from a large agency. And
Yes.
so it's understanding and figuring out the efficiencies to make that happen, which we did very early on. Things that are different, there's obviously a lot less bureaucracy when you're dealing with a small agency than a large agency. We are also a standalone business, right? We are underneath the VaynerX umbrella, but we are a speakers agency. We don't represent folks for other things. And so
No.
our clients are specifically signed with us for speaking, whereas at
Yes.
CAA, they're signed across the board. And there are pros and cons to that. And so we try to accentuate the pros and minimize the cons, because ultimately we focus on clients where we are their focus and they're ours. And
Yes.
so it's been something where it's obviously a complicated process, but something that we, really take to heart. And we're trying to be different. We're trying to, I hate little things like the unagency and things like that, but we're trying to just be different. We want to be more respectful. And it's something where when you're at a large agency, it's all about numbers and scaling and transactions. We try to be a little bit different and say, we're going to try and scale the unscalable. We're going to try to build this thing the way it should be built rather than building it fast. We're sacrificing short-term goals for long-term gains, and it's working. And I think that that's what makes it so much fun. And so the differences are you can't really do those things at a large agency, right?
No.
You jump into the mix of a large agency and there's so many other priorities. At a small agency, you're able to focus on little things and get them right and do them the right way for your clients and for your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you also feel that it's more personalized as a smaller agency because you can give
Absolutely.
the people you have more attention?
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's the Jerry Maguire quandary, right?
Yes.
If you've ever seen that movie, right? He always
Yeah, I
says,
love
less
that
clients, more
movie. It's one
attention.
of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie. It's funny though, because I think it's ultimately, it sounds great, but in practice, it limits you. Because if you're saying, all right, less clients, more attention, well, now you're saying, great, there's a ceiling to what I can do, because if we have less clients, there's less deals we can do. Whereas we look at it and say, we want to scale the unscalable, right? We want to produce and do things for people that aren't necessarily replicatable. So if we are working hard for someone, we want to do things and make it personalized. For every one of our clients, they may all have different expectations or needs. We cater to that. Now, that's not something you can do if you have 500 clients, but ultimately it's about figuring out how do you do that for 5 clients? How do you do that for 10 clients? How do you do it for 20? And eventually, as you scale, you figure out how to do it for more. And it may mean more people in the company. It may mean some sacrificing of efficiencies, but ultimately that's what separates us from the competition. We really look at every opportunity as a unique opportunity. We look at every event as that singular event, and every client is an individual. And so we don't treat them all the same just because they're another client, another event. We want to know what makes them different and special and lean into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, obviously COVID-19 or this pandemic has turned our world inside out and upside down. So can you share with us how this impacted you, and what have you had to do, or what have you done to adapt? And can you give us any examples?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So, Gary and I, we actually did a virtual event all the way back to 2012, and I've been doing them ever since. So
Yes.
the idea of pivoting to virtual was not new to us. The piece that was new was Gary's office doubles as a studio, but the office has been closed. So if he's no longer in the office to record, we had to adapt to that. And I think it was something where we were ready. We pivoted real quick to saying, great, we're ready to go for this. Let's get our ducks in a row. And it's something where we almost had to be patient and wait for the industry to catch up to where we were in terms of virtual speaking. And ultimately, that's where it landed. And it was obviously very difficult, and it was a struggle. And I think managing the changes and the postponements and the cancellations and all the paperwork, that's really been the toughest part of this. But ultimately, being able to deliver a high-class event for someone is really what makes it all worthwhile. And so we've done so many virtual events, hundreds of events over the last year and a half. And I have a feeling we'll be doing this for a long time. Once COVID, I don't know if it'll ever be over, but once we're able to have a sense of normalcy and go back to the way of life we're used to, I think there still will be virtual events. And we've shown that we know how to do them. And it just is something that we'll continue to do. And when people, are already dying to get back together again and be communal at events, I think that's something where we'll be ready for that too. We've been booking both in-person and virtual events. We've seen some cancel, some postpone. It's nothing new. It's really kind of rinse and repeat. The unfortunate reality is you do still have to treat everyone individually. So one event may be canceling for a completely different reason. Clients may not want to go to one place versus another. And it's all very case by case. And I think from the very beginning, we just said, great, let's be reasonable about our decision making. Let's be responsible with what we do, and let's react accordingly. And that's what we've done. And we've followed suit every day. And ultimately, it's led to a lot of happy clients and customers.
Yeah, that's amazing. So at Vayner Speakers, obviously your core focus is now on authors, entrepreneurs, and business speakers. So what do you believe is significant about the focus of these categories?
Yeah, well, I think those are the people we represent right now. We also have an athlete. We have two athletes, a lot of CEOs. We have people from all walks of life. But when we built this business, we said we're not going to be like any other speakers bureau, right? If you open up any website of a speakers bureau, it's great. Who's your mountain climber? Who's your Navy SEAL? Who is your best-selling author? Who is your astronaut? We look at it and say, that's all good and great. We're just going to go out and find great people, great speakers, regardless of what they do. And we don't have any sort of formula for these are the people we want to work with, or this is what you have to fill all these boxes to be eligible to be a client. It's great people who have a marketplace. And that's where we kind of built this entire thing around. So we're just looking for people who have a story to tell, who have a platform to speak from, and there's an audience for. Not everyone fits that mold. And I think, unfortunately, we've had to turn down a lot of clients just simply because not everyone is someone who's, going to be getting bowled over with offers. And I think a lot of people think that agents are kind of the gatekeepers, but ultimately we're just there as advocates, as educators to customers and events. And we really want to build our company up strong. And the folks that we work with are people we love, people we enjoy working with, people who have great messages that we like to amplify. And so we do the best we can for our clients, and obviously can't represent everyone. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that personal touch. So it's a difficult, line to cross, but it's something we do the best we can with.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the power of storytelling, which is one of the most significant parts of being a speaker, you're also focused on building all your clients' brands. So can you share with us a little bit more about this and what makes you different in your process?
Yeah, well, our focus isn't on building the brands. It's more of a byproduct of the work we do.
Yes.
Right? Just like anything else, it's about marketing and connecting the dots between customer and product or service. And so we do the best we can with that. We try to be forward thinking with our approach to marketing, looking at social media for what it is, the place where people spend the most time. And we really attack it on all fronts. We have a lot of theses that we're testing out. And obviously we're fairly young in our business, but we have a lot more to do. And I think it's also something where we're not comfortable just saying we've got it. We really want to grow and build it out the right way and continue trying things out. And that's something too that it was hard to do at a place like CAA. You can't really experiment when you're at a huge organization where the expectations and the spotlights are on you. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's just about the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. And we're constantly evolving and changing the way we do things. So it's something where I'm proud of the way that is and the way we've done it. And I think that, it's something where it's our clients' responsibilities, their brands, right? But what we do is try to protect that as best we can and build where we're able to, right? And that means connecting them with the right events. That means protecting them in terms of what their storytelling should be. That means giving guidance where it's necessary, right? That also means marketing them across social media and other platforms. And so we do the best jobs that we can. And again, it's something where it's not the same for everyone. Some people that means more video, some people that means more written text, some people that's more imagery, some people that's more help from a guidance standpoint because maybe they haven't done as much speaking, right? And so it's everyone kind of has their own brand and their own place and where that is, right? Some people have been working on a brand for 20 years and others are just getting started. So it's all about kind of who that individual is and how we can help them with that. But again, it's more of a byproduct, right? Our responsibility is to find paid speaking engagements for our clients. And one of the ways we do that is to help a brand grow, because the bigger it is, the more people are going to be interested in that presentation and in that speaker.
Absolutely. So now I want to just get, more about you in terms of, obviously you're native from Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and now live in New York with your family. So how do you find balance with your family and having such a big responsibility as a co-founder and CEO of Vayner Speakers?
Yeah, well, it's obviously not easy, but at the same time, that's why we do it. We put in the time to spend time with our family and provide for them. My wife couldn't be more supportive of the work I do. She also works, hard and long hours. We have a young baby at home, and it's about finding time where we can, meaning on one another for support and looking for opportunities to do things differently. One of the benefits of COVID has been that we've both been working from home. So I've been able to watch my daughter grow. Yeah, absolutely. I've only been to the office probably 10 times, if that, in the last year and a half. So being able to spend as much time as possible with my family makes it easier for me to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning so that I can get some work done before my daughter wakes up. It makes it easier to go back to my desk after I put my daughter to bed because I know that she's there and that I do have the opportunity to spend more time with her and juggle it with, the time I'm spending with my clients. And, obviously that also, I can't do any of this alone. And our team at Banner Speakers is phenomenal, right? They are stepping in every opportunity they get. And our team has done such a tremendous job of really, lifting one another up. And, we had one of our colleagues on vacation this week. And she checked in today and I was like, hey, we got everything covered. You do your thing. You be with your family this week because someone else will be on vacation soon too. And that's how we do it around here. It's really something where there's no task that's too big or too small for any of us to do. It's more about just being there for one another, supporting each other, supporting our clients and trying to find these opportunities and build up this business.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me to the two final questions. What are the three key pieces of advice you would give to others who would like to pursue a career in representation? And how would you like to be remembered, or what legacy would you like to leave?
Yeah, well, I mean, if anyone who's looking to get into the representation business, it's hard. When I was in college, one of my professors once told us, he said, if you want to be an agent, you're better off taking your college tuition and going to find a 7-foot-tall basketball player and showering him with gifts and, wine and dine him. And hopefully you guys become best friends. And when he gets the MBA, he's your client. Right? It's just as easy as going to college for it because you can't learn the skills that it takes to be an agent, right? And I often tell people, there's two real paths. You go to a large agency and you work your way up from a very young age. It's long, it's arduous, and you're doing a lot of hard work for very little money, but you're learning a lot by watching people around you. The alternative is you find a small company and you go tell them you'll do anything and everything you can for them because a small company is going to give you an opportunity to see more of the business and you'll grow faster, but you'll be working super hard. And so obviously if you're a young person trying to do this, it's a different story. If you're, older and, well-established, but trying to switch careers or pivot into the talent representation business, it's tough, but it's really about understanding the industry you're in, understanding who you're representing and why, and making sure that you're doing the best deals possible for them. And it's hard to know what that is sometimes, but it's something where you can't ever tell someone you're going to work with them and represent them if you don't know how to best do that.
No,
so understanding the industry,
when it comes to contracts as well and things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, if they're putting their trust in you, then you got to be there for them. So you got to be willing to fall on your sword, admit when you're wrong, and know what you know and know what you don't know. And if you're not in a place where you're comfortable understanding that side of things, you're probably not ready to do it. But go find someone who is and learn from them, because anyone who's representing people definitely needs help. And it's just a matter of figuring out what makes sense and what the value proposition is for both sides. But it's a vast industry. There's a lot of different parts of it. And I also think you can learn a lot from the other side of the table, and not enough people do that. So if you want to represent speakers, go work in events, right? Go see what it's like to actually work on an event that has speakers as one part of it, right? Because then you'll understand it from the other side of the table, from the customer's perspective. And then if you want to pivot into speaking, you'll know what it's like for them. I spent 2 years or 3 years working in events for these golf tournaments, right? So I knew what it was like working with celebrities, dealing with travel, dealing with egos, with sponsors, all of these different aspects that I was able to carry over into the rest of my career. And I don't think enough people give that a shot. Too many people say, this is what I want to do. I'm just going to have a linear focus into that. Well, you want to work in sports? Well, you don't have to go work for a team. You can work for a league. You can work for a marketing agency. You can work for an activation company that's doing things at stadiums. You can work for the venues themselves. There's a variety of different places that are adjacent to these industries. And it's about learning as much about the industry as you can, so that when you do wind up in the place you want to be, you have all this experience that makes you special because you know that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also separates you from competition or from other people in your
industry.
So, and what legacy, or how would you like to be remembered?
Great question. I've always just been super ambitious, so I'm more focused on tomorrow than 10 years from now. I think from a legacy standpoint, I want to be remembered as someone who took care of people around them. I try not to be selfish. I try to be generous, and I hope that those are things that people remember me for. And ultimately, I want to do more for others than I do for myself, but I want to be remembered for being a man of his word and being someone who people can appreciate the work I've done. So I've always said I'm someone behind the scenes. I'm not someone who's meant to be on stages myself, right? I'm really someone who, helps others get the job done. And so I want people to remember for the work I've done for them rather than the work I'm doing for myself.
Absolutely. Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much, Zach, for your time. So if people want to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to reach out, feel free, hit me up on LinkedIn, find me at vaynerspeakers.com and shoot me an email. I'm always here and I'm always happy to help people. I love hearing from people, and not enough people ask for help, but if there's anything I can do for anyone out there, just let me know.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are in your journey.
You got it. Thanks, Karen. Looking forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you.